Hello and welcome to Thursday's interview and a chance to meet a very special guest who sums up the culture and sound of the Mississippi. As this week, obviously, we're celebrating that amazing river and the communities and cultures along its route. I think we all know that it boasts an extraordinary legacy, jazz, blues, and a history that created a sound unique to the area. But why is that sound so evocative? And where and when did that culture start? And also, where is it going? For a taste of what we're about to embrace, let's listen to just a short clip of what my next guest can offer, but also explain for us. Because even if you're someone who professes that you really don't know very much about jazz, you don't appreciate it, you don't understand it, I defy you not to be tapping your foot or maybe even dancing around the room once you've heard this. This is Down in Honky Tonk Town with my special guest, who I'll introduce you to in a moment, and the New Orleans Jazz All-Stars. Take it away.
Don't stand a chance. You got to see the folks get down and mean. They do the T-na-na, and then you know somehow you must be back in old New Orleans. It's got to be a fad for every girl and lad to want to go to honky town at night. Each girl he cries to go, and when she spies a boat, she yells out with all of might. Come on, honey, let's go down to honky tonky town. It's underneath the ground, that's where the fun is found. They be singing waiters, singing syncopators, dancing to piano played by Mr. Brown. Piano he plays, my dear, he plays it all by ear. You wanna stay here, that music that you hear, even act a monkey, dance until you're funky, down in honky tonk town.
Wow. Were you dancing around the kitchen yet? We'll have much more of that later. So let me please introduce you to the man who sang to you just then, and will now sing you the story of jazz, blues, and so much more. Jazz trumpeter, vocalist, band leader, and Louisiana kid through and through, Mr. Wendell Brunious. Hello and welcome, Wendell.
Hello there, how are you?
Oh, well, I'm very well. I was explaining to you that in preparation for this interview, I've been playing so much of your music, and I've really gotten into it in a way that I didn't even know I could. It's catching, isn't it? Your sound.
It's very infectious, you know, the jazz. I mean, you start to walk it, you start to talk it, you start to just exist within that realm of jazz.
It's almost like you breathe it, and it gets into your bloodstream. We'll talk about that a bit later on. But let me ask you, I mean, where did it come from with you? What sort of family did you come from? Did you come from a very musical family?
Yes, my mother's family was a Santiago family, and my uncle, Willie Santiago, was one of the first early guitar players of music we call jazz. They had come from the Philippines, actually.
Oh.
And it was, so my uncles, Burnell Santiago and Lester, and they were very famous pianists. My daddy was a great trumpet player. He went to Juilliard Conservatory in New York, and he wrote a lot of the music for Cap Calloway and Billy Eckstine, Jay McShane, and people like that. So I grew up kind of immersed in a family of jazz. I always say my dad sent me to business school. I'm a business major from college. He sent me to business school. He thought I'd get a real job one day. And I'm still waiting after all these years.
Well, That's interesting because music and business doesn't often go hand in hand, but
Not
when it
really.
does, it works.
Yeah.
But if your father went to the Juilliard School, he must have been very seriously good.
Oh, he was a great, great man. I mean, he could write. He got a bit of polio in his like older 20s, and he had to just write from the bed. We didn't have a piano at the time, so he'd write for strains and stuff like that, just kind of out of his head, just with his horn as a guide. And he would just write for 31-piece orchestra. I mean, he was just a really brilliant musician.
Yeah, like I say, he obviously was seriously good. So
Yeah,
you, from when you were a very little boy, and I know your brother too, you
yeah,
both grew up with music absolutely around the house, always there.
of course, because that's just what it is, New Orleans, you know. And I mean, before I ever touched the trumpet, I used to beat on a bass, like a box, like making that a bass drum to get that groove. So that's what segregates like New Orleans jazz from a whole lot of other music is the groove that you walk with. And there's a beat called a big four, like boom, 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 and that low anticipation right there just gives you a skip in your step, and
Yeah.
that's an important thing in the New Orleans music.
Well, before we get into the actual music itself, yours was what we call a Creole family. I
Yes.
don't even really understand what that means. And
Well,
musically, what does that mean?
I mean, my dad's family, the Brunious family, they came from the Pyrenees Mountains, and the Creole, the New Orleans Creole, people kind of want to make it part of like the islands, like Haiti and stuff like that. It's different than that, but it's still this mixture of French and Spanish, basically. Even though my family came from the Philippines, my mother's family, they had a Spanish name, so explorers going around the world must have done something somewhere. And anyway, but it's basically a French and Spanish mixture of people that are here because New Orleans was the whole Louisiana territory was ruled by France and then by Spain, and so that has been the dominant cultures in our society here.
Yeah, it's amazing how that mixture of cultures has
Yeah,
turned up a completely unique sound,
yeah.
um, which we call Creole, but now we call jazz or what it blues or whatever. When did you first, how old were you when you first had your own trumpet?
Um, just trying to be like my dad. When I was about 8 or 9, I just used to take the mouthpiece and go around, bam, bam, making all kinds of crazy noises, and just like I say, imitating my daddy, trying to play little melodies on the mouthpiece. And when I was 11, I got to seventh grade, and that was my first time going to like a music school to learn the note G and F, and just with the
It's
beginner.
interesting though. You're talking about using the mouthpiece and just walking around the house blowing the mouthpiece, but
Yeah.
that's half the business, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
I mean, using that mouthpiece before you even put a trumpet on the end of it, that is the real control of the instrument, isn't it?
Because the trumpet is almost like an amplifier of the mouthpiece.
Yeah.
So and just a lot of people don't look at it like that, but it's a real good argument that it's just an amplifier for the
So
mouth.
that's interesting. In a way, I mean, up until about that age, you were learning much more by ear and by practice. At
Of course.
some point, did you have to sit down and look at music, written music, or did you do that discipline?
Oh yeah, yes. I did do some quick catching up because I had my dad and my big brother, to always be there. I played the piano a little bit by ear. So I'd ask my dad, what was this chord? He'd say C, like, and if you put this note, it's a C7, and stuff like, things like that. And So having musicians around like that was such a big advantage.
Well, it's interesting you had both, didn't you? You obviously had the culture of listening and having and being in a house full of music and playing with the mouthpiece and everything, but also your father's more classically trained
Right.
background. So you had both.
Yeah. And I had a cousin, his name was Harold Dejan, and he had a brass band called the Olympia Brass Band. And most of the Creole musicians were pretty trained guys. You know, it wasn't just going out and finding a trumpet under somebody's bed and starting to just blow. You know, we had the culture was pretty culture that valued education and you know that included musical education.
Yeah.
So
Job.
yeah, of course, and you know I had to catch up with that, but. I would go when I was like about 14. I would go play with Harold and just sit in his band and just march along playing, you know, learning and from more experienced older musicians. And then there was another guy who came into my life named Danny Barker. Danny Barker was a great guitarist, and he was a guitar player with the Cab Calloway band. He was from New Orleans, but and when my dad got out of Juilliard, he's the one who got my dad, the job as the arranger for Cab Calloway band. And there was a incident with Dizzy Gillespie where Dizzy Gillespie was always doing crazy stuff, you know, and he blew the spitball, and it landed on Cab Calloway's face. Well, that it got him fired, and then my daddy got the gig as a trumpet player, you know, and I talked to Dizzy Gillespie about that at some of the early jazz festivals in New Orleans, and he was like, man, I'm glad Pickett took that job. I went on to be a famous man, you know. So things like that can work to your advantage also.
Oh, if you're there, and you were.
Yeah.
And those names, they're legendary. At this stage, for the benefit of our viewers, perhaps we should listen to one of the most iconic songs of the jazz sound, because this is you with the New Orleans Jazz All-Stars singing and playing When the Saints Come Marching In, which, as you've said many times, is actually the New Orleans national anthem.
Pretty much so.
When the saints go marching in, now when the saints go marching in, you know that I want to be right in that number. When the saints go marching in, and when the sun refuses to shine, now when the sun refuses to shine, you know that I want to be in that number. Now when the saints go more, come on, let's swing it, y'all.
Well, of course, I mean, that's one of the songs that everybody knows all over the world, probably.
Of
But
course.
let's go back to what you were listening to when you were growing up.
All right.
Because when you were growing up and you were listening and learning all the time, who were the biggest influences of the time for you?
All right. Of course, I grew up hearing my daddy practice and my older brother practice. Louis Armstrong was an ever presence in our house because he's the father of us all, of all jazz to me, because he's the one who made jazz like entertaining. You get a lot of guys can play a bunch of notes and stuff like that, but when you hear Louis Armstrong, every note counts. It's like a sermon coming out of his instrument. Every note counts, and every note means something. And his singing, his all his faces and stuff like that. Oh man, was just so like he was such an interesting man to watch. So not only did you hear him, but you watched him because there was just so many things he could do, and anyway.
Well, he humanized it as well, didn't he? I mean, I suppose he
was.
was. I mean, we all know. We call in Britain we call him Louis Armstrong, but you call him Louis Armstrong.
Yes.
But I mean, he was a global phenomenon. But he had that twinkle in the eye, and he was funny, and he made it entertaining. And then, of course, he sat back and played, and he was a maestro.
He was a guy like this, you would never know if he was having the worst day of his life or not. He was always somebody that, kept your attention and just seemed to have joy in his heart. That was one of the main things with Louis Armstrong.
What was his story? Because I mean, I think he was almost an orphan, wasn't he?
Just about. I know he lived with his grandmother, like from the beginning. I don't know what the situation was with his mom. I've heard stories, but I don't want to spread untruths, so I won't even say what I heard. And when he was 11 years old, it was New Year's Eve. He shot a gun into the air, I think probably on a dare, and he was arrested and placed into a boys' home called Milne Boys' Home. And there he met a great trumpet teacher named Oscar Davis. And Oscar Davis changed his life. There was another family, the Karnowski family, that bought him a trumpet. They went to the pawn shop and bought him a trumpet for him to keep playing, after he got out of the home. And I mean, just the stars aligned for him. And guess what? He rose to the occasion. And, good things good things can happen, but you got to keep them happening or take advantage of them happening. And that's what he did.
Well, that's amazing. Because as you say, he came from what you call a dirt poor background, ended up in a boys' home, and thankfully a teacher made the difference. Introduced him to the trumpet, and to the whole feeling of being able to express yourself through jazz.
Yeah.
And as you say, he grabbed that opportunity and made it.
Well, he was mentored, like he loved Joseph King Oliver, who was from the great cornet player from New Orleans, followed him around in parades and listened to him play. And there was like Buddy Petit and Freddie Kepper and those kind of guys who he could get to hear. Manuel Perez was a guy he was mostly a French speaker. He didn't speak English very well. And Louis said about Manuel Perez, he said, Manuel Perez can't speak much English, but his horn can speak any language. But this is the wisdom and the joy that Louis Armstrong had in his heart, that he could say something like that, and that would come out of a blue and just be like, that's profound. That's so profound. There was another guy named Sing Miller around here when I was a kid. He played piano with my daddy's band. And Sing Miller said this, when you've got music in your blood, even the doctor can't get it out.
Oh,
What does that mean? But it means everything, it's like,
Yeah. And I honestly, says it all, doesn't it? That is absolutely so true. And it's something to be so proud of as a musician. It
oh
really
yeah,
is. Music cuts through every culture,
everything.
probably every person in
Yeah.
the world.
And
Music.
no matter how good or bad a day you're having, when you
Yeah.
put on music, you kind of, the troubles become second nature, become second part of it. The music at that moment.
Well, I
Just,
want to play a clip right now, which is a song that he made very famous. If he didn't write it himself, you'll tell me. But I know he used to start so many of his concerts with it, and that was "Home Again in
yeah,
Indiana."
back home
Is that
again.
right?
Yeah, he just, it was a good tune to warm up on. So that's kind of why he took that tune. It swings from the beginning, and it's a good warm up song, and he just used it to his biggest advantage.
Well, let's hear you now paying homage to Louis
Sure.
Armstrong with that particular song. Let's hear it now. Back Home Again in Indiana, as we were saying, that's one that Louis Armstrong used to love starting a lot of his concerts
Sure
on.
did.
By the way, I mean, just listening to that, such incredible performers with you. So introduce us. Who are the trombonist and the clarinetist, for instance?
The clarinetist is my wife. I lived in Sweden a long time, and she's from Sweden originally, and her name is Caroline Brunious. Charlie Halloran is playing the trombone. He's a young trombone player who idolized New Orleans players. He's actually from St. Louis, but he came and he just got, just studied the New Orleans music. And it's something you can study, but not necessarily do you always get it if you study. He just surrendered his whole heart and soul to that music, and he's a fine, fine trombone player.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, we're going to hear him a bit later as well.
Yes.
But your wife,
Yeah,
the clarinet player,
Yeah.
is from Sweden.
yeah.
Now, how did she absorb jazz, the whole idea of New Orleans type jazz? Where did you get that from?
she started playing when she was a little kid, like 6 or 7 years old, and had a fine teacher who's still alive. He's in his 90s now. And he just kind of took her under his wing. And of course, they studied the classical music, how to read and all those kinds of things. But she was always interested in playing little melodies. So he would maybe play a harmony to her, like Georgia Camp Meet and all these kinds of songs. And that's a great way to learn because it's inspiring rather than doing, with some kind of sternness. I mean, of course you have to be stern. I mean, there's one love to me, that's tough love. But tough love doesn't mean you don't give in. It just means hey, we have to do this, but we can do that too. And that's the thing that helped her. So when she was about 15 years old, she came to New Orleans. Her grandparents brought her here, and she was supposed to play like one time with a great clarinet player named Jack Mayhew, who was a New Yorker who moved here, but he worked with Tony Bennett and people like that. And she said in those 2 weeks, she played about 24 or 25 times, just because once people heard her, and she was a young teenager interested in the music, and that's what we want, this music to keep going, and if we got a young person, interested in this music, boom, we automatically embrace them and take them in. So another friend of mine named Freddie Lonzo heard her play, and he says, I'm going to bring you to play at Preservation Hall. And oh man, that's kind of like the Carnegie Hall of New Orleans, And I happened to be playing there that night. I was like, so people told me, they got this young lady in the back. She wants to play a couple of songs. I said, look, she's going to have to wait till the last set. So the last set, they waited the whole night. The last set, I invited her up, and she played, and I was like, if I'd known you were that good, I'd let you come up earlier. But anyway, you never know who's in the audience. I mean, thousands of people want to come up there and play. Who's good, who's not good, I don't know. But anyway, she went back to Sweden. She came back when she was 17, and she sent an audition tape to UNO. I was away. I was on the road then. And I was teaching at UNO at the time. And she wound up with a scholarship there. And she got a music degree over at the University of New Orleans. It was one international scholarship, and she got it. And that's amazing. Anyway, I had this big hurricane came, Katrina, and everybody's life. I wound up in Sweden, and anyway, anyway.
So musically, you fell in love, and then you fell in love.
Yes, of course.
That sounds wonderful. I mean, you mentioned Katrina there, and I don't know jazz is so full of soul, isn't it? It's so emotive and emotional.
Oh, yeah.
When you play, you must think of all of the people who went before you, and family members, and people you've lost. It must come out in your music.
They're ever present. That thing is ever present. You're not thinking of them directly, but those things are ever present. And when I start thinking about teaching someone to play jazz, I'd like to start through the blues, because everyone knows some form of the blues.
Yes.
If you've got a toothache, that's the blues.
Oh, yes.
You go outside to get in your car and you got a flat tire. That's the blues.
That's
Someone stole your bike. That's another blues. Oh my God. And we've all had a headache or something fall on your toe. All of that is blues, because blues is kind of pain, but in the blues, it gets resolved. Like, oh, my baby's gone. I don't know what to do. But one day she's going to come back to me, That I know for true. But, and So it's got some resolving to it. And
Yeah.
that's because you don't think, oh man, I broke my leg, I'm never going to walk again. You always think, man, if I get this cast off of here, I'm going to be, you know what I mean? And it's all that is going to resolve one day.
Yeah, it's a bit like crying, isn't it? Crying, you let it all out and you feel better afterwards.
You should.
Yeah. I tell you what, I want to show everybody another clip here, which because what I love about you when you do your concerts and is the way every instrument player gets a chance to, frankly, show off,
Of course.
show what they're really good at, show that spirit. And I love that because that's when you really see how talented each individual musician is, let alone when they play together. But this is a little short clip showing what a trombone player can do. This is you guys playing Tin Roof Blues. But I'm telling everybody, look out for the growling trombone. I mean, honestly, getting a trombone to, just get that.
Yes.
I don't know how you describe it. You probably got a word. Growl to me.
Yeah. You become the tiger right there.
Yeah,
When
absolutely.
you get your moment.
So back to you though.
Right.
Why is the trumpet player? Why is the trumpet player the center man? I mean, you sing as well, obviously, a bit like Lewis used to do.
Yeah.
You play the trumpet, you sing. Is there something particular about the trumpet and why that is the center stage instrument?
Well, most of the time you're playing the melody. So you're the leader, you're the musical leader. I don't care whose name's on the contract. You're the musical leader. And that's that's kind of why we're in the center. And I mean, you can be the loudest instrument if you know, so you can control like out choruses and stuff like that by playing some higher notes and just directing the band to get the climax of the song right there. Ba-da-ba, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. And doesn't make sense to go on. I mean, you've already reached the peak of the song if and one thing I'd say about
What I was going to say, but every player and every instrument has a personality, doesn't it? The guy at the back with the bass.
Oh yeah.
And rhythm and the I mean, everybody seems to have a sort of slightly different personality that gels together.
Of course, that's what bandmanship is about. Everyone has to do that job, but you got to listen to the melody. But the way I play the melody is affected by the clarinet and affected by the trombone, and then there are certain set of chords that are going on with the bass and piano, and the drummer may go into a Latin rhythm. So then we change a little bit to accommodate that, and just try to make a harmony between all of us, make those like a jigsaw puzzle, make all those pieces fit together and become one.
Are you ever aware, or do you not get time to think about it, but are you ever aware that you really do have a gift? Almost a God-given gift to look after?
Yes, I really believe that and the circumstances I grew up in were so allowed that gift to develop. And we have young, educated trumpet players and musicians, and they got a lot of notes, and they got a lot of flash, and they got a lot of knowledge, and they got a lot of. But I always say this: not what you play, it's what you say. And if you're not saying anything, I don't care how much you're playing, because my goal is to please my audience. That's what I'm playing for. Of course, I've got all kinds of things going on in my body, my head, my fingers, and everywhere. But I'm there for the audience. That's because I'm just doing my best. And like if we have this Louis Armstrong show, say, I'm there to honor Louis Armstrong. I'm doing my way of honoring Louis Armstrong, yes. But he was the guy that put jazz on the map for real. I mean, there were people before him. He had mentors, he had idols and stuff like that. But he was the guy that was the really gifted guy that taught us to play, swing, sing, entertain. And this was at a time when it was really, really tough for a person of his heritage, And I mean, but in spite of all of that, he, man, laid down a sidewalk that we can all just walk on now.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're so right. I mean, he was a Hollywood star when people, like you say, of his heritage were not Hollywood stars, but he was admired by everybody.
Okay.
He was way up there on the big star map, wasn't he?
Even when he was slighted by, you wouldn't even know it. He would just go and perform at the highest degree he had that minute, because I heard stories of when he did like high society that people would give parties and not invite him and stuff. Yeah. He was like, guess what, man? I don't even want to come there.
He always kept his dignity, didn't he? He was always dignified.
Yes.
But he always had the twinkle in the eye. He always got the better of everybody. I mean, I just think that to be the trumpeter, to be the front man in a band, as you are, it needs an awful lot of courage, well, I don't know, just, I don't know, you have to have courage to be able to walk on there and be the center person. Tell me the lovely story of how you tried to get to see Kid Thomas's band. Didn't you? They were a very famous band, and you went up there and you sort of caught them when they were just having a sandwich in between times.
Yeah, exactly.
You talked them into taking you on.
I sure did. I was playing on Bourbon Street at a place called Maison Bourbon, and I used to play from 4 until 9 o'clock at night. And where I parked was across the street from Preservation Hall. So I started walking towards my car, and I'm going to see what's happening at the Preservation Hall. I hadn't been there in a long time. I used to go there with my Uncle Lester and my dad. People like that played. But I hadn't been there in a few years. I had my teenage. I thought I was really somebody. We all go through that.
Yeah.
And I stopped in there, and they were on the stage with no trumpet player. I was like, y'all need a trumpet player? And they were like, no, man, we don't let people sit in here, man. I'm not sitting there. I'm coming to play, So I got up there and I played a couple of songs. And then the doors to the building opened up. That was Kit Thomas there, man. And then I was like, oh, man, I didn't know if I had really violated anything. But then he told the girl to get me a chair and just play next to him. So then I played second trumpet the rest of the night to Kid Thomas. And it was a great introduction to that music because I'd been in Lionel Hampton's band. I'd played with Gladys Knight and the Pips and, just playing those, just playing parts and not starring. And finally, this, I got to play around Kid Thomas and really check him out, how he played that old music. And he was the only trumpet player I ever heard that was not influenced by Louis Armstrong.
Oh.
He played more of a style like Buddy Bolden, like the very early style, very percussive and not full of harmonies that you know, that kind of stuff. And that was like, that was very foreign language to me. I was like, I grew up in New Orleans, but I'd never been that close to that. And that was a wonderful thing, man. So the stars aligned for me to start to learn that music. And I mean, I got plenty things I can play, like Kit Thomas and Kit Sheik and Alvin Alcorn and all the older trumpet players that, I mean, quite natural. I already play like my daddy, but just because I paid attention to that, I respected that, and they didn't have to play like me. I had enough, you know. I grew up like records of Clifford Brown, and Lee Morgan, Hot Lips Page, just, you know, just about Chet Baker, and just all kinds of different trumpet players. And all, you know, I always say to kids, if you take 25 musicians and you transcribe that, those 25 become you, you know? So you got a little bit of this one, a little bit of that one, a little bit of that one, and a little bit of this, and pretty soon you're, you know,
Well,
you're defined.
every sound is a learning experience, isn't it, in your business? I've got another video lined up of you playing and singing Everybody Loves My Baby. Let's enjoy this.
Oh, yeah. Sounds good.
Hey, I'm as happy as can be. Blue skies are all that I see. Whenever she makes love to me, I've gotta let it out. 'Cause she's my sweetie, can't you guess? Wild about her, I confess. Does she love me? Oh my, yes. That's why I've gotta shout that everybody loves my baby. But my baby don't love nobody but me. Nobody but me, oh yes. Everybody wants my baby, but my baby don't want nobody but me. That's plain to see. She's got those Elgin movements, 20 years, I guarantee. There's no need for improvement. My sweet mama's built for speed. Everybody loves my baby, but my baby don't love nobody but me. Nobody but me, yeah.
Now, I've got some pictures here of the Preservation Hall. You mentioned it earlier. What is it? How important is it if you're visiting New Orleans?
It's very important. You know, when I moved back from Sweden, it was one of the places I called them. I had been touring with them for 20-something years when the hurricane hit, the Katrina. And I called them and said, hey, man, I could come back to work there, because what I was thinking, I can't hold young musicians responsible for something they've never heard. So they had to hear me play there. You know, I was doing other kinds of music and other things, but I thought, man, I'm one of the real hearts of this New Orleans music, you know, and I've recorded with like Dr. John and Eric Clapton, and I've done soundtracks for movies and stuff like that. But I still thought I valued what went on and what still goes on at Preservation Hall. So that's a place. It's almost a must see if you come to New Orleans. It's
So are there always concerts going on there?
yeah, 7 nights a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you should see that.
Yeah. And just the building was the last remodeling, I think, was in 1877 or something like that. So it's pretty authentic looking. It's the decor is over 100 years old. So it's something to see, really. It started as an art gallery. And then they invited, Kid Thomas was the first one to play at Preservation Hall. They invited him to come to play, and they played out in the courtyard. And I remember when I was a little baby, man, going back there, I knew all those guys. They knew my daddy. And anyway, it's something to see. I think it's a must see if you come to New Orleans.
Yeah, it must be quite an experience, an amazing atmosphere.
It is.
Has New Orleans changed much in your lifetime?
Of course. A lot of the original people we knew, that like the older generation, older than a generation ahead of me, like Kid Thomas and Sweet Emma and Willie Humphrey, Emmanuel Sales, my Uncle Lester, my daddy, people like that, they had a flow about them that I really respected and really wanted to learn and did learn. But a lot of the people coming behind me now are like, most people that learn almost exclusively from books. And the book can't teach you to feel. And, I taught at the University of New Orleans. Ellis Marcellus had called me one day, and he was like, man, why don't you come teach a class here, man? Just teach kids how to play, man.
Yeah.
He said, we got all the book stuff. We got that. But teach them to play. So I made up a class and started to teach there. Well, when Ellis retired, it was in my 4th or 5th year, the department secretary, she said to me, she says, Mr. Brunious, we're going to discontinue your class because you don't teach out of a book. And I said, well, babe, I work with Gladys Knight the Pips. I work with, Lionel Hampton, toured with the Preservation Hall Band for 20-something years. Toured with Benny Golson and people like that. Who on this staff has that kind of resume? Who?
Yeah.
Oh, PhDs, it makes no difference. Who's got that resume? And she was like, oh, well, we're just going to, she had no answer. We're just going to answer, well, you're going to do a disservice to the kids. I said, but it's okay. I'm not here for this little money y'all got here. I'm just here trying to help young people learn to play. And as a result of that, I touched some really great musicians from New Orleans, Nicholas Payton, Mark Brode, Jonathan Baptiste, Trombone Shorty, all of those guys grew up, listening to me. And fortunately, he had me to give them examples in classrooms and stuff like that. And anyway, it's just something you got to witness. You can't learn it from a book,
You can't learn it from a book. No, you have to learn it from the sound. And thank goodness there are video recordings now.
Yeah.
We can see you as well as hear you, which, sadly wasn't so true before Louis Armstrong. But I was just wondering, when you play on a big, a big stage, like with Gladys Knight and the Pips, with any of the huge names, what happens after a concert? Do you ever get together and just talk or play or gig or just, I don't know. Do you ever get the music together, or does everybody just go off to their different dressing rooms and disappear?
Well, if, you have friends in the band, you got people you're close to, And when I worked with Gladys Knight and the Pips, we had Amadee Castanet was a guy from New Orleans. So if we were, say, in Detroit, or we try to find, Marcus Belgrave or Dama Bird or somebody, or say when in New York, we try to go hang out with Winton, or, just stuff like that. And because it's very lonely on the road. I mean, it looks like real, like you're really doing something, but it's very, very lonely. I mean, after the concert, you can just go back to your room, turn on the television, and go to sleep. It's kind of how
That's
it
a
works.
shame.
Yeah.
That's a shame, isn't it? Because you are all so good at your music, but you need a bit more time. I tell you what, that takes me into the next clip I want to play, because we were talking earlier about how some of the blues sound is very blue. And of course, the New Orleans blues sound can be very almost funereal. It's very well known for those funeral melodies played by big bands. So I just wanted to play this little clip, which was from one of your concerts. And I know that it's something called Hesitating Blues, I think, which was by E.C. Handy, one of
E.C. Handy,
famous names in.
Yeah.
Well, let's have a listen to it, and you can tell us all about it in a minute.
Sure.
Okay, so who was E.C. Handy?
W.C. Handy was the guy, he wrote the St. Louis Blues. He was the first guy to copyright the blues.
Oh.
So he became very, very famous, but he's written some really wonderful blues songs. And there was a record, and it was called Louis Satch Plays W.C. Handy. And man, he just recorded this Hesitation Blues, St. Louis Blues, Ain't Hager's Blues, and all, like years ago, a lot of record companies would not record you if you didn't have the word blues on the record. So that's why songs like Basin Street Blues,
Yes.
which is not a 1-4-5 form, but it became what they called the blues because that's what record companies wanted to record, stuff they called blues. But that Hesitation Blues is such a great song, man. And it's it's a song about the telephone lines blowing down, and the guy is just like, how long do I have to wait? Should I do something or must I hesitate? So that's the Hesitation Blues.
See, yes.
That that you can't do it because you're almost forced to hesitate. So that's Hesitation Blues.
How many albums have you brought out of your music?
I mean, of my own, I would think about 12 or 15, but being on records of other people, I would think maybe over 100, I would think.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite something.
People just want you to play on their record. Like Eric Clapton came here and he wanted New Orleans feel in the songs that they were recording. It wasn't the Layla or the other stuff that he does. He was trying to do New Orleans songs, like a few of them anyway.
Yeah.
And it was Jerry Douglas played the slide guitar, and it might have been Jerry's record actually, and Compton sang on it. I played, but that was a great record. Yeah.
Tell me about your collaboration with Tom Hook, because I know that he's working with Viking, particularly at the moment on their enrichment program, particularly for the Viking Mississippi journeys. Tell us about Tom Hook. Who is he? We're going to see a video of him in a moment, but tell me all about your collaboration with him.
He's the greatest for me. We get more music out of two people, him on piano, me on trumpet, and sometimes flugelhorn, and we both sing, and we sing harmony, and he knows so many songs. I know so many songs that it's just unbelievable. But he's originally from Kansas City, Missouri. And he moved to New Orleans I think officially in 1999 or something like that. He had been working on different boats and stuff like that since the 80s. But I think his official move to New Orleans permanently was 1999. But he's a great piano player, a wonderful singer, and just a wonderful man. I mean, he really is. I love that guy, man. He's brilliant. He's a genius.
Well, you can hear that love in this clip. This is West End Blues. Let's listen to it.
Mr. Brunious, y'all. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Ba 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 ba. Wow 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 wow. Wendell Brunious. Yes.
I mean, yeah, wonderful. I mean, there's no other word. Gets you going, doesn't it? It's just beautiful. Tell us about the Trombone Shorty Foundation. I mean, it sounds extraordinary. What is it?
Yes. Okay, it's a foundation founded by Troy Andrews, who's a guy we call Trombone Shorty. He was, I was mentored him when he was from a kid, but he was a special kid. He was great. He's a great trombone player. He plays good trumpet. Man, that guy can hit high notes. I mean, he's a great performer, you know, and he's gotten in a position that he's able to have this from, you know, this Trombone Shorty Foundation, where they sponsor me and Herlin Riley and some other people to try to mentor the young people to get them, because that's what Troy was like saying at first. He said, man, we don't have enough people can explain what traditional music is. So he said, man, the only person I know is Wendell. That's the person I would trust with the most of it. So then they contacted me and said, hey, man, would you be part of this? And I was like, of course. We got young people that just need that guidance. And, you know, there's a saying, and it says this: when the student is ready, teacher will appear. So you can't make it happen, but if you got a student that is ready, that teacher has appeared. And, you know, it's like I've touched so many young lives they're not even young anymore now, you know, people 50 years old now that I've helped out. And all I want is you to get better musically. I don't want anything. I don't charge for lessons and stuff like that. If I had to do that, I don't even know what I would charge, because it would have to be worth it to my time and to my whole situation. But
Is there, Wendell, is there a worry that the tradition will die out?
It's being carried on by people, a lot of people not from New Orleans. And what has happened is, when we had a stronger musicians union and stuff like that, and like in the 70s when I was playing on Bourbon Street, and maybe even into the 80s, we had a strong union, and you could get paid. You'd get paid a union wage, union minimum, whatever you want to call it. And now we have kids going out playing for free and just passing a tip kitty around in bars, and it's
Not enough.
No, and it doesn't make you a professional. I mean, you stay in amateur rank, because we got people, you know, 70 years old doing that now. And anyway, and they present a competition to professional musicians that people don't want you, but don't.
Yeah, but you don't want the main tradition to be watered down.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
exactly.
Now,
And all they got to do is, you know, do something that,
preserve the heritage, haven't you?
yeah, it's diluted quite a bit.
Yeah, diluted. Yeah. When Viking guests come on the Viking Mississippi, they will have the option to attend a private concert, which I know is going to be led by you and the New Orleans Jazz All Stars. And the concert will feature classic pieces by Louis Armstrong, as you've just said. And afterwards, guests are going to have the chance to meet you guys. Here is a little taster of what they'll experience. So I thought, how about a bit of ragtime with Alexander's Ragtime Band? So again, this is with the New Orleans Jazz All Stars. That was wonderful, of course. And I think everybody's sort of, driving around the kitchen by now. How do you feel when you come off the stage after all of that? Do you feel just totally exhausted and put your feet up and have a drink or whatever? Or are you still buzzing?
Oh, kind of all of that. We're still buzzing. I mean, because you're so enthralled by the music. I mean, it's just you gotta if you don't want to be here, don't come. I'm just like 100% in the music. And if you got a few people to come up and say hello to you and just, man, I really like that. I saw Louis Armstrong 1945 and so on, and all of these stories that you get from the audience, and that they're so happy, and because that's our job, to make people happy.
It's your job is for everybody to come, and they should be uplifted by the end of the evening, definitely. Sure. And exhausted probably as well. And I'm sure you must be. I mean, I guess in your business, you probably, don't go to bed till about 1 or 2 in the morning and get up at midday, do you?
Yeah.
Is that your lifestyle?
If there's golf. If there's golf, if there's 8 o'clock tea time, I'll be there.
But I mean, you traveled all over the world as Louis Armstrong did. Yeah. I mean, he went to Europe to spread jazz, didn't he? He went all over the world to spread jazz, and you're still doing it.
Yeah. It's a wonderful position to be in, because I'm really a people person also. He was a people person. I mean, and he was in a little different position than I'm in, like, because he came up in a different era than I've come up in, but in spite of that, he's still the father of us all. That for real, I don't care what color you are, what creed you think you are, or whatever. He's the jazz father of us all. You call yourself a jazz musician, even rock guitarists owe something to Louis Armstrong, because he was the first one to step up and really do it. So
made a difference to people's lives, I think,
of him in our own way.
Yeah,
and that's it's a wonderful.
We've got another clip here of one of Armstrong's specials. Baby, Won't You Please Come Home?
Oh, yeah.
As performed by you. Let's have a look at that.
That was good.
Oh, baby, won't you please come on? You left your daddy all alone. Well, I've cried in vain. Never no more call your loving name. Swing, when you left, you broke my heart. Well, that don't mean that we should ever part. Let's never part. Every hour of the day, you can hear me say, baby, won't you please come home, come on home. Oh, baby, won't you please come home.
Well, look, before I say thank you so much, because you've taken us on such a journey, I just wanted to give our viewers a chance to ask some questions. And we've got some real goodies for you, if you don't mind. I've got Max in New York says, is there a worry that your style of jazz will die out or become blended with other styles? We sort of touched on this. Do you fight to preserve your unique sound?
Yes, because, I mean, just with all the people that I've been influenced by, like I say, Louis Armstrong and my daddy, of course, Henry Red Allen, but also people that they would call more modern people, like Clifford Brown and Miles Davis and Chet Baker and Freddie Hubbard, people like that. So I'm not like trying to play like an 85-year-old man. I'll do that in about 20 years.
Yeah.
But
we just had Paul McCartney play at Glastonbury in Britain. Yeah,
exactly.
He's 80 and he put on such a wonderful show. So I'm afraid the bar has been set high. You just got to keep going for years and years yet.
Right. So you have to contribute to the music as well as perpetuate the music. So that's not a slippery slope, but it's a tender balance there. You know,
just keep on going.
You have to bring something original to the music to call yourself an like improvisationalist or whatever you want to call it. But you got to, like, I talked to Dizzy Gillespie, like I told you years ago, and he always told me what Charlie Parker said: keep one foot in the future and keep one foot in the blues. This is
that's nice.
Yeah. So
you should write that big on the wall.
Play from the heart, but still you got to keep making statements that other people have not made.
Yeah.
So but anyway,
with the same sort of feeling.
Yes.
And heritage. Frida and Lars in Oslo say, who would you most like to have met and played alongside? That's almost an easy question, isn't it?
Well, yes. I mean, of course, Louis Armstrong. I met him when I was a little kid.
You did?
So he came to New Orleans, and about 100 musicians went out to the airport to meet Louis. And man, he was one of the last ones off of the airplane. We thought he missed the plane, you know. I mean, I was about 7 or 8. And like finally, Paul Baldwin said, there he is there. Oh man, Louis coming down the stairs, because they had to come down the stairs in those days. And man, Louis Armstrong walked in the airport and they started to play the Saints Go Marching In. And it filled his heart. He was just like, this is all the boys I grew up with, man. You know, they hadn't forgotten him or anything like that.
Oh, Wendell, I'm so pleased to hear you say that. That's wonderful.
Then, you know, I tiptoed. He was a very short man. You know, I tiptoed. I was like, I'm almost Armstrong, man, you know. And he scratched me on the head. Hey, Pops. Hey, you know, just, you know, stuff like that. And,
we'd had phone cameras at the time, yeah. Actually, that brings me on to my next question from Patrick, who's in Ireland. He says, when you play, do you think of family members?
Of course. That's ever present in you. So when I think of, you know, not only family members, but people I grew up around, like Louis Cottrell, Bonnie Bigard, Frank, you know, like Frau Joseph, and people like that were instrumental in the development of the music to where it is now. And of course, you know, they're just ever present there. That's who you are. You know, like.
Well, of course it is. And because it's so emotive, it's bound to be. Martha has sent in a question from DC. She says, I'm booked on a Mississippi cruise quite soon. Is jazz a learned experience? I warned you about this question earlier, didn't I?
Yes.
She said, I didn't think I loved jazz at all, but I've learned to love it. Do you need to hear it live to really love it?
You love it more if you do. You love it more if you do. And it's like, what happens if someone starts hearing very, very modern jazz, or maybe free jazz, or because it comes under the kind of auspices of jazz, but it's not like something that's touching you. You know, it's more of a self-expression. Check this out. Look what I've learned. You know, this kind of thing. You don't tend to gravitate towards it, whereas it's music with melody and nice words and, you know, entertainment value, you tend to more gravitate towards it. So yes, you learn to like the music that you like.
Yeah, I think the more you immerse yourself, you probably do learn to love it more too.
Of course.
But
And
I
you may open your mind up a little bit and go a little farther, but things you don't like, you won't like.
you'll know
Yeah.
pretty soon, I guess, won't you? Here's a good one to end on then. Ali in Wisconsin says, what makes a great love song? Who are your greatest jazz singers?
Okay, what makes a great love song?
Yeah.
Well, it's like a nice melody. That's the first thing. You know, there's so many beautiful melodies, but then if the words mean something to you, the very thought of you makes my heart sing, you know, and that kind of stuff, and you're like, man, that's speaking to you, you know?
Yeah, 'cause I know you love Nat King Cole, don't you?
Oh, I love him. I love him. He's and one of the greatest ballad singers. And just because not everyone can sing a ballad, you know, not everyone can sing a ballad. So that's an important part of it, to have someone who's performing it properly, you know, and having a beautiful melody, having the words interpreted properly. Nat King Cole, Sinatra was a great ballad singer. Ella Fitzgerald, get like Billie Holiday, man. She wasn't what I would call a ballad singer, but she could make you feel it, man. You know, and it's so everyone has to bring his or her texture and flavor to a particular song.
Okay, and then finally from James and Enid in the USA, when you travel and tour, and after you've done a concert, do you kick back and listen to other people's music? So whose music would you listen to just to relax?
One of my favorite records is Johnny Hartman with John Coltrane. It's all ballads and, man, so professionally and beautifully done. I love Chet Baker. I love Clifford Brown with strings. You know, these a lot of these things that Louis did with Ella Fitzgerald, that's some of my favorite stuff. The Summertime and, you know, all these kinds of things. You know, it just, and we keep learning by listening to others. Because, you know, we got a lot of people in the world who's, you know, oh, enough about me. What do you think about me? You know, and
how many songs, Wendell, do you think you know off by heart?
about 1,500, 1,700, that. Yeah, but I mean, that's a 50-year career, you know.
Yeah.
So, hey.
Wow.
And a lot of times you know songs you don't even know. I mean, that sounds crazy, but if someone starts playing the song, you got it from listening, from 45 years ago when
way back in the brain, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly right. And after you know so many songs, there's just been so many chord configurations. I mean, that's finite.
Yeah, there are different ways to do it, aren't there?
Right. So you're able to figure your way out of that. Anyway, it's just so. You kind of know songs you don't know, and then but hey, that's what 50 years of experience.
Well, we have joined you Europe time, sort of early afternoon, early evening. I know it's morning for you, which is probably, you should be in bed. What are you going to do the rest of the day? What's your day adding up to today?
Oh, I've got a panel that I'm going to talk about jazz again at 5 o'clock this afternoon. And then tonight I'm at the cigar bar with Tom Hook, and we're doing a recording with a beautiful young lady who's written some original music. So that was my morning, transcribing all of that music that we're going to do tonight. Anyway,
Well, I better let you get on. But honestly, it's been brilliant to talk to you, and most of all, brilliant to hear you as well. I've immersed myself in your music in the last few days, and I've enjoyed every moment of it. And I know anyone who comes on a Viking cruise and actually gets to see you live will just so enjoy it.
Caroline and I
Thank
are
you so
both
much for joining us.
forward to those Viking tours and just helping people understand more about our music and the Mississippi and the whole thing.
Oh no, you're doing a wonderful job. Keep doing it. That's all I can say.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. God bless. Hope
It's
to
been
see
an
you soon.
absolute pleasure and privilege. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And I know that everybody watching at the moment will have been thoroughly enjoying the little clips that we've shown. So I thought, what better way to send you off now for the next week with a full version of a lovely rendition that will get you dancing all the way back to the kitchen for a chilled glass of something sparkling and a night of revelry. So how about Wendell and his friends down in Honky Tonk Town? But this is the full version. We got a snippet earlier on. And by the way, if you'd like to hear the whole concert, just press the button below. Or if you're watching on Facebook, for instance, come on to Viking.TV and search for Wendell Brunious and you'll find the full video, and do enjoy. Or otherwise, try the cruise. Until I see you again next week, do stay safe and have a brilliant time. Goodbye.
Johnson said one day to his Eliza May, we've been to nearly every place in town. Can you suggest to me some other novelty? We both can go and do the thing up brown. Yes, sweetie, said my dear, there is this place I hear. I got it straight from Mose who brings the clothes. It's honky tonky town, down where the girls are brown. That's where the music flows. Come on, honey, let's go down to honky tonky town. It's underneath the ground. That's where the fun is found. We'll be singing waiters, singing syncopators, dancing to piano played by Mr. Brown. Piano he plays, my dear, he plays it all by ear. You wanna stay again? That music that you hear, even act a monkey, dance until you're funky, down in honky tonk town. Come on, Stevie, come on, Stevie. Don't stand a chance. You got to see them folks get down and mean. They do the T-na-na, and then you know somehow you must be back in old New Orleans. It's gotta be a fad for every girl in lad to wanna go to honky town at night. Each girl he cries to go, and when she's by her boat, she yells out with all her might. Come on, honey, let's go down to honky tonky town. It's underneath the ground. That's where the fun is found. We'll be singing waiters, singing syncopators, dancing to piano played by Mr. Brown. Piano he plays, my dear, he plays it all by ear. You wanna stay here? That music that you hear, even act a monkey,